Hi, and welcome to the UX Design Prototyping course given by DTU, the Technical University of Denmark. And I'm Michael, as it says on the slides here. And I will give you a little intro to what is UX. So UX is user experience, and that very much relates to design. But maybe we should look at it more like um, if we're in biz speak, we could talk about design thinking as this process we go through when we develop a new product. When we try and find out something where there's a demand for something, and then we try and figure out how can we prototype this? How can we figure out, validate that there is a need, and then sort of iteratively develop something. And that's also what we do in software when we're talking about agile development, and we have all these little increments of software cycles where we go through something, validate it, and continue. But I think what makes lean different, because we're going to apply lean methods here to the UX, is that it's very much again a prototyping thing, but with a very strong emphasis on qualitatively, quantitatively, what is it that we validate? What is it that we have found out now and which we'll incorporate into our product? And then the lean thing is really a question of creating a minimum viable product. What is the least features we should have in something in order for it to really fulfill this purpose? And in terms of prototyping, well, I guess I'm an illustration of this, right? I could make a fancy video. This is kind of fancy, but we've done it with camera, using the camera of the phone. We would normally, I guess, in post-production put in a logo, but you can see here I say it's DTU, and I guess we can even have the full logo, which we would normally put in on the title. So it's kind of really lean, right? But it fulfills the purpose, I think. There's slides and there's me and what else. So what we normally talk about is that we go through some steps where we say, what are the needs? That's the first one. And then the second one is for whom. So these two things are coupled. What is the demand, and can we sort of define these people who want this? Why do they want this? Because there's normally another product there. So why is it that they want to use this thing here instead? And then we could have the solution. So one way we could solve this, which makes it better than the other ones, that would be like our prototype. And eventually that prototype will become a minimum viable product, which means the real product, which we're going to launch and we'll get real feedback and so on. But before we get there, we just iterate like normal agile development. So again, to stress, what is different here is that you might in software development have something like requirement specifications, and you could easily have a situation where somebody put down some requirements, you test against the requirements and you fulfill, and you go, wait, this is great. But it's not great, right? Because you have not found out whether it actually fulfills the purpose. Does anybody want this product in the first place? And so instead of looking at things as, okay, well, let's just get some requirements down, this is this process where you have to figure out what is it that really makes people want this and want to use it, and how can we improve on it. So to give you an example, the book has these very simple ways of illustrating it, that you have these little stick figures. So this is the stick figure with the problem. I need this, I want something. So let's look at a minimum viable product. For example, the first iPhone, I would say, was a minimum viable product. It was not so much a phone. It was like 2D, and where everyone else was doing 3D. It had kind of bad antenna and reception, so it was not really that. But what it did was it solved the problem of carrying thousands of tracks in your pocket. So you would normally have like a media player, and there were several media players out there at that point. But this one here would combine it with a phone, so you would only need one device, right? So you could look at that as sort of, wow, yeah, a product like this it works like a phone, it works as a music player, I want this. So who want this? Well, in this case, it would probably be the people who would like to have a lot of tracks in their pocket. So before streaming services, this also means that these would be the people who would, if you think about it, they would go into their iTunes store and they would purchase these tracks, they would purchase these albums, and you can imagine now a whole business model around this where you have music labels offering these things as tracks which are easy to download, have on your player and so on. So there are four little guys here, and some of them would be from the music industry, I guess, and other ones would be the ones who would actually purchase a product. And then you would have a solution, which in this case, as I just said, was not a great experience in terms of being a phone, but it was a wonderful experience in another way because it had this first really nice touchscreen where you intuitively could interact with something. There's these bright little app icons and all that. So, you know, in the end, it doesn't matter so much that it wasn't a great phone because people would probably use it for more for all these other things. And eventually, Apple also figured out how to make a great phone out of it. So, you know, happy end in this sense. But staying with the Apple theme, I would say the challenge is very much like with the iPhone, that we often are in a situation where we are going to do something completely new. And how are we going to prototype this? Because people don't know about it. And I picked some little illustrations here from the Apple Developer Conference in 2015, where they talked a little about how to prototype for the Apple Watch. Because at that point, you know, the watch hadn't really been available for development. So if you wanted to create something for the watch, maybe you would just put it on the screen of a phone. Then you would have like the correct size. But you know, it's a different thing to have a watch on a phone than having it like this. So I like this example here. You can check it out in detail yourself. But as you can see, this is like a little movie. This is an app which says something about there's a train which is going to arrive. And then you can see it's like a little film. You can sort of go whoop, whoop with it in time, and you can figure out, okay, at this point it will show this thing here. Then when we move forward in time, the train is about to arrive, then it will do this and that. So this is actually a real prototype, I would say, which captures the essence of what this app is going to do. Whereas you could see something like this thing here, which is more traditional. You will have a number of screens, and this is like, okay, these must be like shortcuts for stories in a magazine or something like this. But you know, that's a very short story compared to this one here, where you have really captured the whole aspect of time. There will be these notifications, maybe it has changed when you look at the watch, or maybe it's the watch we saw and you look at it, or maybe it just sends a notification. I don't know, but you know, it's actually, I think as a prototype, more interesting than this one here. And this one here is great in the sense that you try and fit in as much text as you can on a screen the size of a watch, only to find out, no, this is not what a watch is for. In theory, you could do this. You could sit there and you could read from the screen of your watch, but is that really what you want to do? No. So the first example with the little thing with the train and so on, that is much closer to what would be the experience, and you could see that's possible to do just with a little piece of paper. Other tools could be more like PowerPoint, or as in this case here, from again an Apple example, it could be a Keynote. So it's just a stupid example, right? They have this idea that they want to create this new product, which is that you can send toast messages to your friends. So that means that you will have this sort of toast interface on your phone, and you will write your message, which will be burned into the toast by a toaster. So your phone will communicate with the toaster, and instead of building one of these really nice toasters, you just create a mock-up. So you have the same size on the tablet, and you just do this with some simple animations. And you could even do, I guess, some sort of system design where You could have several phones which have like mock-ups of the app running on their phone. Then there will be somebody pressing the button on the keynote and you can see the toast pops up. So you can sort of replicate the whole sending toast messages experience without making an app and without creating a toaster which can print your messages or stuff like this. But we're going to do something which combines these two things, right? We're going to work with something where we have the paper, similar to the ones with the little train app, and then something which is more like the Keynote or PowerPoint, but this works in a better way because there's several tools, but Pop is one of them where you just use, again, the camera on the phone and you make little sketches. And the little sketches is what we call wireframes. And these are like the screens. So they're like screenshots. And you will put these screenshots together and create something which is more like a storyboard, which means all the wireframes, how they will appear, creating the foundation for your app. And to do this as quickly as possible, maybe you can even see in these examples, which are just hand-drawn, there are some design patterns, like for how to have a list view, how to have these icons distributed across the screens, or what does this, you know, there are different ways of doing this, where you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you, in a lean process, you really rely on these design patterns to say, okay, this is what we want to arrive at, and we will just use these standard templates to be able to validate. Do people get the idea? Do they like this? Then maybe we will change the interaction later, but you know, if you sit there and think, now I should be really creative and do something which has never been done before, you better be really bright, right? Because otherwise you're going to waste a lot of time and nobody's going to understand what you're doing. But in Pop, what makes it nice is that you can actually make functional prototypes. So this means that the little slimy green thing you see here is the active area. So you create like buttons, top layer on top of the things, where you, if you press this, you go to the next screen. And this means that you can then share these little prototypes. You can have them run on your phone, on a tablet, in a browser, or on your laptop, whatever, and you can share. So this means you don't need to sit down with people. You could actually show this on a computer, and people would understand what it is. So what we're talking about in Lean is, of course, this thing of modeling needs, and we will get through a number of methods for doing this in you know, a qualitative or quantitative way. But model understood as maybe a simplified representation of a structure or concept or something. Business model is another way of really modeling these needs. So if we have a business model canvas, you will recognize the same things here. At the utmost left, you have the problem. What is it we set out to solve? At the utmost right, you will have the for whom. You will have the market. Who is it who's going to purchase, enjoy this thing here? So these two things go together, and this is like a sequence. One, problem. Two, who. And this, you don't even need the prototype. You don't need the paper for this. I mean, you could use the paper at the back of an envelope, essentially. Just sit down with people and have them answer, you know, I have this idea for a product which will blah, 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 and you will say, oh yeah, and in that discussion, maybe people will misunderstand what you say because you don't have something tangible. You just have your idea and you try and explain it. So maybe they will misunderstand what you say, and they will say, oh yeah, that would be really cool because then it could do so and so. And that will give you an idea, saying, okay, that was actually not what I intended, but maybe this is actually what I could put into my concept. So you could see, even in a first dialogue, without a prototype, you could get many of these things as an input which you would like. But then, if you want to make sure that this is really what they want to purchase, then we get into the thing in the middle of the canvas where it says there's a unique value proposition. So again, there might be several apps doing something like this, but what is it that you do which makes this unique? It could be faster, more pleasant, more fun, I don't know, lots of things. But then the actual solution, which would be, okay, when we have done our prototyping and we actually launch this as an app, we code it. You can see that's a solution which is very small up here. It's like the little stamp-sized square saying solution. And your solution is the whole thing. Your solution is essentially what problem does it solve for whom? How does it, provide this unique value for, through this prototype? So this is actually what this course is about. A number of tools where we're gonna do this sort of modeling of needs, so that in the end we'll end up with something which is all the wireframes, huge storyboards, lots of little micro interactions in between the screens, which are so accurate and precise that you can actually sit down and code it. Then coding would be the least of the problems here. But actually all the steps which come in before validating this is what this course is about.